We are serious about winning fantasy football leagues, and today we're getting an early look at the top 13 quarterbacks for 2026. 13 is Caleb Williams, who was QB8 in 2025, averaging 19.1 points per game, but he did have 5 games under 13 fantasy points. This is the type of quarterback, exactly like we just said, that if he can improve consistency, can absolutely be a league winner, but that inconsistency definitely costs you weeks, and not someone you may want to count on for sure when you do make it to the fantasy football playoffs. And the draft watch is what's going to happen in this wide receiver room. We saw Colston Loveland, the tight end, stepping up at the end of the season and in the NFL playoffs, looking like an elite option. They've got DJ Moore, who may or may not be with the team next year. Luther Burden, Ramadunze. He could absolutely win your league as a later round quarterback, letting you build up those running backs, wide receivers, and elite tight ends. QB12 and another quarterback that could absolutely win leagues if he can take any sort of step up is Justin Herbert. He finished as QB11, 18.7 points per game in 2025 with a heavily injured offensive line. But this is the type of offense that can elevate, especially with Mike McDaniel joining as an offensive coordinator. He wasn't maybe meant to be a head coach, maybe not quite yet, but his offensive mind is elite. And this team is going to take a step forward. Let's jump to number 11, Dak Prescott. He was QB7, 20.2 points per game. George Pickens was a huge part of the success. Even with the CeeDee Lamb injury, we saw the touchdowns. We saw George Pickens elevate this Dallas offense to really a new level. Javonte Williams stepped in as well, but that did lead to a few weeks of poor Dak performances. He had 4 weeks under 14 fantasy points, 2 weeks under 10 fantasy points. In some of those games, they were just all rushing touchdowns. They got down inside the 5 early and often. They scored those touchdowns, and they just ran the rest of the game. That is a risk for Dallas. Now, their defense was pretty weak, allowing them to pass most weeks, which allowed him to be QB7. But the main question heading into next year, everything's looking good if George Pickens comes back. If they don't re-sign George Pickens, who some teams are definitely going to want to get. He showed up, he showed out. Some teams have the capital to pay him like a top tier wide receiver that the Cowboys may or may not want to do. We've seen them struggle with their contracts. So if Pickens leaves, that's going to make CD an even better fantasy football option, but Dak would move down the board a little bit. And that brings us to Patrick Mahomes. I know he's dealing with the injury, but I've still got him at 10. He was QB4 in 2025, 21.1 points per game. Rashee Rice was not in the lineup for most of the year. Just didn't have an elite wide receiver room for the vast majority of the season, and still was QB4 in points per game. Injured week 15. That is the key we got to watch out for. I'd really like to see him play, at least in a preseason game, see him looking good in training camp before I would even consider drafting him. And the main concern here, can we see him and how high is he going to go? Patrick Mahomes is a name everybody knows. And as you know, names that everybody knows, you have to pay a little bit more for in fantasy football. So if he's a more expensive option, like he has been the past few years, he's just not going to be someone I draft. 9, and this was really a bust for this season, and he got away with it. Nobody's hating on Jayden Daniels, even though he was not good for fantasy football. QB15, 16.8 points per game, and this includes the first few games of the season when he was fully healthy. He was just not good for fantasy football. It just wasn't the same. Teams seem to figure him out a little bit more. He's coming back off an injury, and the question is, how cheap does he get? I mean, last year he was a 3rd round, 4th round pick. This year he should probably be more in the 6th, 7th, 8th round with how poorly he looked in 2025, and I know he was injured, but it still wasn't that good even when he was healthy. And I think he's going to be another player that's overdrafted upcoming season. 8 is Lamar Jackson, who also was not good even when healthy. 16.7 points per game, QB19. His rushing attempts, now this is the key you may not see on other channels. This is one of the reasons you want to subscribe for this offseason content, is I went back and did the research here and saw that his rushing attempts, 5.2 per game this season, down from 8.2 in 2024, down from 9.3 in 2023. This is a guy that just is running less and less. Even at the start of the season, when fully healthy, he just isn't running that much, and he really doesn't need to. They've got Derrick Henry, who's able to run the ball, especially in the red zone, but they can lean on Derrick Henry. The less rushing attempts means Lamar Jackson should not be drafted right after Josh Allen like he has been year in and year out. And we look at the 2026 draft watch, can we get him cheap enough? Most people, again, are not going to look at this rushing stat. They're going to be thinking about him as a pure rusher, a guy that's always running the football, electric in that way. He can rush when he wants to, but if he's not going to rush like he has in the past, he's not going to be that top-tier fantasy option that we need him to be. Now, this is a guy I probably will be drafting a lot of in 2026, Trevor Lawrence. He finished as the QB6, 20.4 points per game, but check this out. QB1 since week 10, where he only scored 10 fantasy points, by the way. This was not a cherry-picked stat just to take his first huge week and run it through the rest of the season. He had 10 fantasy points in week 10. He played the Texans, I believe. QB1 since week 10 when Jacoby Myers joined the team, with Travis Hunter coming back. Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas Jr., assuming they don't trade him. Parker Washington, Travis Etienne, assuming they bring him back as well. This will be an absolutely elite stacked offense, and we saw the coaching change really unlock Trevor Lawrence. this is going to be one of my guys in 2026. He's going to be cheaper. He's going to be like a 7th or 8th round option, most likely. He should be going higher. He should probably be a 5th round, but he's going to be going cheaper than that because it's Trevor Lawrence. I mean, we've got all these other options. There's so many good quarterbacks. That's going to make everybody a little bit cheaper, and he's going to be a great grab in 2026. Jalen Hurts has not been someone I've drafted. This year, I was famously or infamously down on Jalen Hurts, and it actually paid off to not be investing so early in Jalen Hurts. He was QB 8. Did not return draft capital at 19.1 points per game. Checked out this stat. 8 rushing touchdowns in 2025, down from 14 rushing touchdowns in 2024. Now, the key thing to watch out for, they're going to get a new offensive coordinator. Their offense was horrible in 2025. It was Saquon Barkley up the middle, not successful. Deep ball to A.J. Brown, worked some of the time. They kept throwing A.J. Brown the ball. They were losing some of those games where they just kept peppering him the ball. The passes were working. It was just far too predictable. This is something to watch out for in 2026. This new offensive coordinator can help elevate him, which I think makes Jalen Hurts an extremely safe option. This 19 points per game, that's probably around what we're going to get again in 2026. So he's not the highest upside option quarterback you can grab, but he is a quarterback that is going to be safe at the draft capital. Now, this one is scary. Jaxson Dart was QB2, 22 points per game when available. Since week 4, Russell Wilson started off the season. Injuries, now we say most of the time in fantasy football, can't predict injuries. Like someone like Patrick Mahomes, someone like Christian McCaffrey. It's like, hey, they've gotten hurt in the past or they're currently injured, but there's no reason to expect them to be injured again. Jaxson Dart is getting concussions. This is something that can knock him out for a longer and longer period of time, the more that they happen. And if he does not change his style of play, you could be without a quarterback for a period of time. So the key here is that he is a league winner if he stays healthy. Absolutely will win you your league if he plays all the games, no matter where you draft him. The problem is that you probably should be drafting a backup, another top 13 guy. Don't go to a Jared Goff. Don't go to a Bo Nix. Go to a Caleb Williams at worst, someone we talked about in this video, because they're also going to give you an opportunity to win your league. Number 4, and I get that many of you may be surprised, how is Brock Purdy this high? This is another guy I will be drafting a ton of in 2026, and it starts right here. QB2, 22.7 points per game. Now, he dealt with injuries. He didn't play as many games as everybody else. He scored 32 points per game, week 15, 16, and 17. At the beginning of the season, I highlighted Brock Purdy as a league winner. Now, did he win you your league? Maybe not if he was your main quarterback and you didn't make the playoffs. But if you made playoffs, he absolutely won your league, averaging over 30 points in the fantasy football playoffs. He's got Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall should be healthier next year. The offensive line should be healthier next year. The main question is, what is this wide receiver room going to look like in 2026? Brandon Ayuk most likely gone. Ricky Pearsall is there. They have a couple options. Juwan Jennings is there. Who is going to be the top wide receivers? Will they add anybody? Can it get even better than it was in 2025? Maybe another surprising one. I've got Joe Burrow at number 3. He was QB 15, 16.8 points per game in 2025. But from week 13 on, when he recovered from injury and returned from injury, he averaged 20.6 points per game. That's up there with the top quarterbacks in the league. And with Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, he's got the best offensive options in the league. It's going to be a top scoring offense each and every week. Their defense, still most likely not going to be that good. So you look at the end of the season where he's averaging 20 points per game. That's kind of more what I'm going to expect next season, maybe even a little bit better. I know some of you may want Drake Maye number 1, but it's simply not going to be the case in 2026. But he's probably going to be quarterback 2. This year, he was quarterback 3 behind Brock Purdy, behind Josh Allen, with 21.5 points per game. The one other note is the rushing attempts. 127 rushing attempts, 8 behind Josh Allen. He's a threat in the red zone as well. He doesn't want to turn the ball over, so the Patriots are running the ball. They're doing safe passes. They're doing those rollouts to the tight end, those late releases. Really effective in the red zone, and Drake Maye using his legs as well, getting you some rushing touchdowns. The main question is the schedule. It's going to be a lot more difficult in 2026. But the thing I did some research on here is when they played the Browns this year in 2025, he was great. He had a great game against the Browns, one of the toughest possible defenses. When you look at his games against the tough defenses he played in 2025, there weren't that many, but he did play a few, and he actually did pretty well in those games. Number 1, before we get to my strategy for 2026 based on these rankings, is Josh Allen, QB1 in 2025, 23.4 points per game. The one concern is that even though with 23.4 points per game on average, he did have 3 games under 12 fantasy points, including 1 in the playoffs. The main concern for next season, the main thing to watch out for is with the coaching change. Do they add some additional pieces? Do they add a great wide receiver? Do they finally go get him some additional help? Because he's really working with one of the worst wide receiver rooms in the league. He doesn't need one. He's not the best deep ball passer. He's best at the short and intermediate passes, using his legs, using the run game. But getting a top-tier wide receiver would certainly help take him to even the next level and really solidify him as the top-tier option. For your 2026 strategy, notice there's 13 elite QBs. I mean, if the worst you can do is Caleb Williams, that's not bad. Meaning everyone in your league, if you're not playing in a 14-man league or bigger, you're not playing in Superflex, should have an elite quarterback option. Do not overpay. If people are putting quarterbacks in that 3rd round, that fourth round, I wouldn't really be drafting them that much because it's Josh Allen in that end of second, start of the third round. Maybe Drake Maye, but then I see a pretty big gap before I'm trusting those next set of quarterbacks because you just wait a few more rounds. You can get a Trevor Lawrence, probably a Brock Purdy. You can get a Caleb Williams in round 8, round 9, round 10. This is the type of strategy that I'll be using in 2026. I'll be going for Josh Allen in that third round, a consistent option. You know you're going to get what you pay for, or I'm going to be waiting to grab one of those last 3 available guys like Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams, because they're going to be cheap options with great offenses hitting into 2026.